My story should have had a happy ending. The ones with terrible beginnings usually do. But I'm realizing my hero's journey won't end with me slaying the beast and getting the girl. It's ending here and now with a plastic parasite wearing my bleeding skin. Calling the police isn't an option. It goes to their department. Leaving Greensville isn't either. Google Maps shows me as a blue dot, a blank canvas, stranded on an empty plain. No roads, no mountains, no anything. I know that's not true. The town is here, but this place, if it is a place and not something far from it, isn't of our world. This perfect little town is just a nightmare in disguise. It started days ago, I think. Time moves like liquid here. It bubbles through the cracks and turns everything into a refractive blur. The sun sets at odd hours, rises when it pleases. Nothing moves like clockwork, or if it does, it moves like a broken clock, stuttering, stopping, and lurching onward in strange intervals. For me, it started the minute I turned 18. That's when I left the trailer park behind. I didn't have much. The clothes on my back, the overnight bag on my shoulder, the cigarette on my lip, and the mason jar of petty cash I'd saved from summer jobs. But it was enough. It was all I needed to get out of that abusive cesspool, to leave the tapestry of awful memories behind. I had no idea where I was going, but the place didn't matter. All that mattered was putting that dead end in the rearview mirror. I lived in a stretch of the Ozarks that deserved its unofficial motto, meth, death, and liquor breath. It only described the man formerly known as my father, the man I wished was dead. So that was that. I was after a fresh start anywhere but here. I walked to the bus station and thought about things. Where I'd go when I got there. What I would make of myself. I didn't have any answers. When I hit the bus station in the early evening, a wooden pillbox sitting on a desolate stretch of road hemmed by dense woods, the place was mostly empty. There was a scabby homeless guy crumpled out on something high by the front door, a few olds inside, and the attendant, a pimply girl who looked no older than me, behind the counter. I set my bag between my feet and scanned the departures. "Where to?" she asked in a jaded, nasally voice. The rest of my life was at my fingertips, a bottomless well of possibilities. Los Angeles, New York, El Paso, Seattle, and a place called Greensville. What the hell is Greensville? It sounded like something Dr. Seuss would have rejected. "Where is that?" I asked, indicating Greensville on the board over the ticket window. "I don't have X-ray vision," she said. "The overnight bus to Greensville." The girl frowned. "Don't know. Want me to look it up?" I hesitated. There was a certain allure to a place called Greensville. I could almost picture the manicured lawns so startlingly green it hurt, the baby blue sky dusted with clouds, the postcard-perfect homes arranged in neat rows. It was a place I wanted to be, a place where people grinned at the neighbors and always waved hello. If it turned out to be some slimy smear of a town, I'd rather not know until I got there, because not knowing meant it could be perfect. Not knowing meant I'd be able to stand at the bus ride, dreaming about what might be. "No," I said. "That's where I'm going. One ticket to Greensville." There's something strange and uncanny about an empty bus stop in the dead of night, like it's a portal to another place. What lies between our world and beyond? And it's only by sheer luck you don't stagger over a crack in the facade. It was late, and I was getting nervous. Darkness had settled in, stealing away the light and the buses which had been sweeping through all day. I hadn't seen a car for at least an hour, and my bus was late, 30 minutes late. It was supposed to be here at 9:45, and just then headlights splashed down the road like two clone eyes. A little ball of excitement manifested in my gut as the ancient bus, looking like a sad abused dog, motored down the quiet road. I scrubbed out my cigarette and grabbed my overnight bag as the bus sidled to a stop. The driver cranked open the door. He looked strange, no one thing I could pin my finger on. but it was like he was assembled in a mannequin factory. Perfect jet of black hair, starched uniform, porcelain skin, big toothy smile greeting me from behind the wheel. "Going to Greensville?" he asked in a voice that was high and squeaky, but not unpleasant. "That's right," I said as I boarded the bus and offered up my ticket. "What's the run time?" He frowned, like he didn't understand. "How long's the ride?" I clarified. His smile brightened. "You just settle back and I'll get you where you need to be." I started to turn away, hesitated. "One thing," I said. "Where is Greensville?" His smile widened, growing into a long grin. "It's right where it needs to be." Okay, weird, but I shrugged it off. Some people rode buses. God knows I met plenty in the land of meth, death, and liquor breath. I thanked him, scanned the bus for an empty seat, of which there were many. There were only 2 other passengers, one near the front of the bus, the other towards the middle. Both men in long coats with fedoras slumped low over their eyes. If I had a hat, I might have done the same. Instead, I stretched my Eisenhower jacket over my head and settled down into the back of the bus for the night ride to Greensville. I blinked awake and found myself beneath an open sky, a deep, cool blue fluffed with clouds. My head was pounding, slowly and rhythmically beating against the walls of my skull like a terrible drum. "Ugh," I groaned, wincing against the headache as I shifted up and took my bearings. Standing beside me in the shade of a bright green awning was a wooden bench, a bus stop that looked like something out of a 1950s catalogue. "What the hell?" I muttered. It was unweathered, unblemished, unvandalized. In other words, it looked brand new. So did the patch of grass beneath me, the one splashed in sunlight. Something was off. As I dug my fingers in, I realized it was fake grass. It felt dead and grubby beneath my palms. This is so wrong. I grimaced, yanking my hands away like I'd touched a hot griddle. But that was all forgotten when I saw the postcard-like sign, painted in garish colours that depicted the town of my dreams. Perfect lawns, houses, smiling folks waving to one another, a place where people didn't know the meaning of meth, death, and liquor breath. It was a perfect little 1950s suburbia. The cars, old and round, the women in dresses, the men in suits. No way. Arching letters read, "Welcome to Greensville. Smile like you mean it." I shaded my eyes and looked past it, bracing myself for disappointment. I expected some dying town, cracked and blistered like a boot heel, maybe a giant waste factory pumping oceans of gunk into the sky. Here we go. But no, of course it wasn't that. It was perfect. Like a movie set. Too delicate for this world. But it wasn't a set. It was real. It stood before me like the Emerald City, streets paved in brick, suburban outcroppings surrounding a cozy main street, a staple church growing from a trimmed lawn. All of it divided into neat little sectors that seemed so right. Too right. And beyond the town, that was the thing I couldn't see. Beyond the town, it was out of focus, hidden behind a strange shimmering haze like heat pouring off asphalt. But I didn't notice. All I saw was the small town of my nightmares. Just as the sign had promised. Old cars, perfect homes. A main street lined by soda bars, penny arcades, dress shops. But it was a ghost town. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. The wind sighed through me as I strolled into town, my bag on my back. I scanned for signs of life. A bird, a stray cat, a rat rooting through the trash. Nothing. Nothing but people. People in shops. Behind the wheels of cars. Behind the counters of a diner, posed mid-meal. Frozen forever in silent routine. Because they weren't people at all. They were mannequins. The first thing that sprang to mind was Call of Duty, Nuketown. The second was that sin against film, Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I thought about Indy staggering into a town just like this one, only to leave it in a lead-lined refrigerator as the raging breath of an atomic blast devoured everything in sight. I pulled out my phone, expecting to find that reception was a thing of the past. 1 bar. I typed in Greensville, hoping for something, anything. Greensville didn't exist on Google. Panic took root in my gut. I punched 911 desperate, only to get an answering machine, a plastic voice saying plastic words, the sound of something imitating human manners and courtesy. It made my skin crawl. "You have reached Greensville's finest. We're out right now, but if you leave your name..." I killed the call. I stood there on the main street of a dead place. Everything felt wrong. The freshly painted signs, the freshly paved roads. My mind was awash of white noise, unease, confusion, static. Rational thoughts had fled, leaving me to flounder through the static for a plan of action. Nothing came. What did come, dancing at the front of my brain in flashing red neon, was the realization that something was very, very wrong here. Then, something moved, just out of the corner of my eye. My head snapped around fast. I found myself staring at my own drawn expression in the diner window. But it hadn't been my reflection moving. Number it came from inside the glass, inside the building. The door held a sign that read, "Welcome. We're open." I moved closer. Sunlight glared off the soaked glass, turning the inside of the eatery into a dark chasm where shapes did not exist. I cupped my hand to the window and peered in. At first I didn't realize what I was seeing, but then a dreadful, slimy shiver crept up my spine. I curled with dread as I stared at the mannequins eating their plastic meals. Their heads had turned, and every single one of them was staring right at me. I jumped back and did what my lizard brain told me. I ran. Blind, full tilt, scrambled somewhere. Anywhere but here. The buildings blurred into a colourful scroll as other plastic men and women and their children turned their plastic heads to watch me go. I could feel their dead eyes drilling into my neck as I fell off the main street and into a quiet alley. I collapsed against a trash can, one that had never and maybe would never know the taste of garbage. I stuffed air into my lungs and wondered what I should do. The bus stop, yes. I'd go back to the... Where was the bus stop? It appeared just around the lip of the alley. I looked both ways. Main Street pulled away from me and shifted into the suburban outcroppings, broken only by a few prominent buildings: the church, the courthouse, the bright red fire station. The town shrunk away into a dull green pinprick, stretching as far as the eye could see. There was no bus stop. There was nothing but Greensville. I stared at the perfect town, as still and lifeless as a painting. I felt my hopes and dreams crumble, like a city under siege. This was supposed to be my new life. It was. Hands grabbed me from behind and yanked me back into the alley. That's when I started to scream. The man in the suit was covered in blood, drenched in it. I barely recognized him. His face, a gory, mangled mess, hung in shredded strips and tangles from his bone-white skull. He had been on the bus to Greensville. There had been 2 of them, fedoras low over their eyes, overcoats draped over their suits. And now this one, this nameless G-man, was dying. He moved like an expiring animal, one that had been clipped by a semi. He gripped my shirt with bloody hands, trying to drag himself to his feet. I don't think he realized both of his legs were gone, crudely shredded off above the knees. Nothing more than mangled stumps, spilling blood in hot buckets. "Please," he groaned, his voice rough with agony. "Run!" He crumpled to the ground, a puppet with cut strings, and I heard a muffled thud from inside his jacket. I swallowed hard, every nerve screaming at me to bolt. I wanted to touch the tattered suit, still warm with his red life. But I was from the land of meth, death, and liquor breath, and I knew exactly what that sound was. Grimacing, I gingerly peeled open his jacket to reveal the .38 special he kept snug in a shoulder holster. Beside it, tucked into the jacket pocket, was a badge. I pulled it out and flipped it open. The acronym C looked out at me. Supernatural Enforcement Agency. What the hell was that? I didn't care. I wanted the revolver. It would feel good in my hands. It would be a comfort. I unbuckled the holster and reached for the gun. "Don't be cross," said a plastic voice. I looked up and saw the man's partner standing in the mouth of the alley. His face, blank and featureless, instantly betrayed what he'd become. One of them. "Everyone here smiles," he said. "It's our only rule." Then his face tore back, and I realized he wasn't just a mannequin, he was something far, far worse. I snapped out the gun as the mannequin's face broke apart, splitting back as if on a hinge to reveal a mouth of jagged, needle-sharp teeth. Teeth made of broken porcelain, set into a mouth of just that. Its eyes, black and lifeless, creased into slits as 4 huge insecticidal appendages erupted from the sides of the plastic parasite. The grinning thing fell forward and caught itself, scuttling toward me on all fours like some nightmarish insect, one that operated like a hermit crab, using the mannequin's husk as a shell. It scuttled up the alley, a high, rattling shriek issuing from the back of its throat. More shrieks called out in reply. Tens, dozens, scores of cries rang out from every house and street, every store and building in the greater Greensville township. All those fake people, with their fake lives and their fake clothes, were infested by something. Something which arrived and squirmed just behind the plastic smiles. It hit me like a freight train, a bolt of fear which swallowed my tiny, imperfect world like a black hole. The walls of the alley flew away. The revolver disappeared from my hands. Curtains of darkness fell over my vision as a plastic parasite pumped toward me. I had to move. I couldn't move. Fear was all I felt, raw and tingling. I sawed air through my lungs and bolted it into a roar. The revolver materialized in my hands, firm and sturdy. I leveled it and found the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. 3.38 caliber rounds tore through the creature. Sprays of plastic and blood erupted from its form. One insectile limb blew off at the joint. As half its face tore free and went tumbling to the ground, the world around me shot into clarity. I fought to my feet and ran like the wind. I found myself on the main street, facing down an army of mannequins. There were hundreds, men, women, children, a sea of summer dresses and cardigans and polisher shoes and suits. A wall of smiling plastic faces, barely masking what nested beneath. I had 3 bullets in the revolver, hanging limply at my side. I would need 3,000, and even then, I wouldn't stand a chance. As if to punctuate that thought, the denizens of Greensville changed. Their heads split back in unison, baring jagged teeth. Arms forced their way out of plastic sleeves, tearing through their clothes, testing the air. The army of picture-perfect people, transformed. The plastic parasites had revealed themselves. A wall of rattling shrieks filled the air as I tried to run. I turned to find myself surrounded. Dozens of smiling things skittered down the sides of buildings, through alleys and around storefronts. This was the end. The end of a kid who wanted nothing more than an eraser, a giant eraser to scrub away the past and start anew. It was heartbreak, the crushing realization that here and now, there was only one thing I could control. I stuck the revolver beneath my chin and, until the cutter set into the curb, I didn't think. I planted my feet and lunged as the plastic parasites crushed in from all sides. Using the momentum, I kicked out my feet and dove, aiming for the narrow gutter, hoping I wouldn't crack my skull on the concrete. The sky and all its light whisked away as I plunged through the storm drain and tumbled into the darkness. The ground slammed into my stomach, drilling out all the air. I wheezed and staggered to my feet, desperate to lose the bar of sunlight slicing into the gutter. Shapes wiped across the drain, shrieking and overlapping. I fell forward into the gloom, stumbling through a maze of filth and slime hiding beneath the postcard perfect town. The shrieks faded as I navigated the grimy corridors and sludge-drenched catwalks. I followed a river of thick brown muck gurgling downstream, hoping it would spit me out into sunlight, someplace far, far away. But the only sunlight I saw was what filtered through the sewer grates. Sometimes I paused to look out at the town that was supposed to be my new beginning, the one now filled with mannequin things frozen in time. Frozen until whatever lived beneath their plastic skin decided to wake up. It was like that for a while. A blur, a broken memory. My journey through Greensville's sewer system. Sometime later, I found the boiler room. Down a narrow corridor and a spiral set of stairs, I entered a cavernous space. It was drenched in strange subterranean light and wrapped in thick pipes and tanks, dials and levers. It felt biblical, a huge living organism. It hissed steam, belched smoke, all of it throbbing with awful industry. The heat was unbearable. "My God," I whispered as I realized what lived behind the equipment. Thick pools of flesh pulsed and throbbed through the spaces in between pipes and vats, as though something huge, some awful amount of hot meat was wearing the metal like a husk. I could smell its hit, sour reek. It filled my throat and tunneled into my lungs. It was agonizing. I couldn't take it. I shoved the revolver against my temple and pulled the trigger. The gun didn't fire. It didn't paint the floor in my thoughts and feelings. It offered an impotent click that made me feel like doubling over in a bout of insane laughter. When I had fallen into the sewer, I must have rolled the cylinder. That was an easy fix. I squeezed the trigger twice. Click. Bam. A stray bullet whizzed across the room and pinged off a vat. An angry spray of steam hissed out in a boiling cloud, and an idea slapped me in the face. There's no one for me to call. No one but you, my nameless, faceless co-conspirator. My phone is clinging to life long enough for me to finish writing this. I'm down to 2% to tell you how it ends. When I started this, I wasn't sure how it would end. Now, it's sealed, cast in blood and guts. It certainly isn't a happy ending. Those stories, the best kind, usually don't grace people like me. My life was written from the moment it began. I tried to rewrite the ending, and look where it left me. In the heat of a dying boiler room. I spent the best part of an hour cranking every dial and lever I could find, and now this place, the one concealing that massive flesh thing, is brewing its guts into something powerful. An explosion, I'm hoping, will banish this town once and for all. Every damn gauge is in the red zone, its needle trembling fearfully as steam sprays and heat rises. I don't know if that living flesh thing, the one behind the pipes, is the town's mistress, or its mother, or its brain. But I do know fire is the cure for wrongness, and once I'm done treating Greensville, none of its plastic parasites will smile ever again.